Yes, listening on coming back on the back of those two presentations, very powerful, very strong, and very educative. Bringing it home to us in ABSA, once we got the news about the prevalence of the pandemic, the coronavirus pandemic, one of the things we do is first of all is ensure that we protect our staff and customers to ensure that they are able to continue work. So we looked at our teams and looking at how they work and enable them to be able to work from home or work from different locations. Like I said in my introductory speech, the resilience that we need to build under this environment is very different from what we have done traditionally in business continuity in the past, which was primarily driven by inability to access certain locations or inability to access certain systems. And therefore, this being different in that we needed to also be able to get people to work from different locations because of social distancing. Then we had to look at who works where and who does what. And in so doing, technologies become very important to enable people to work from home, to enable people to work from locations that they haven't worked from, but also putting protocols within the organization to ensure that people manage communication between themselves in a different manner. So you'll have things like restrictions on movement between floors. You'll have restrictions on movement between buildings. But ultimately, it's aimed at ensuring that we have our business moved on. In looking at the customer side, we've actually done quite a bit to ensure and support the customers to go ahead. We have reviewed over 50,000 customer facilities to ensure that we support them to be able to carry on. This is worth over 53 billion shillings. And I think that is a significant contribution to ensuring that these businesses continue, because when the business continue, even our own business continues. We've looked at supporting the people who are directly involved in looking after those affected, and in so doing, we have invested or we have supported in the purchase of PPEs, personal protection equipment. This is in addition to creating opportunities for counseling and support services in conjunction with some of the suppliers in the market. And all that helps us support and manage our customers and our staff and be able to drive things forward. When I come down to SMEs, I think the pandemic as it is an opportunity for SMEs to reorganize and rediscover themselves, because as it is, every business essentially is a solution to a problem or an enabler to that solution. So if we find that you have been working in certain ways, but because of the pandemic, you cannot actually continue doing so, then you need to look as a business, how else can you deliver that? So and the example that we got around the laundry business, I think is a great example of what we can do. And this is what we're encouraging our customers to do. And this is what we're encouraging people to look at all their businesses and see what they can do. When you look at the other things that we do internally within the organization, we are working to ensure that all our staff can work from home, so enabling them to have the technology and the other facilities that they need to do that. And that presents a business opportunity. So if there is somebody who's in that business line, then probably they should be able to pick up that as a line of business that they can develop in. And it's the same as all the other businesses that have to readjust, and therefore in so doing create a new need that needs to be supported. As ABSA, we are supporting also businesses that are directly involved in manufacturing of equipment or materials that directly go towards mitigating the COVID-19 pandemic. That is an opportunity again for business. So when we look at how we have done, we've had to look at how we reorganize our own working environment, which is critical. We've looked at how we reorganize, how we support our businesses, and we continue to develop that to be able to ensure that we have a resilient plan that works for us, but also works for our customers. And I'm using the word resilience because today we are dealing with COVID-19, and there'll be other pressures maybe in the future. There have been others in the past that actually put strain on our businesses, and we have to be able to drive that. A response from different businesses and different companies may be different, but the ultimate goal and objective is to ensure that the business survives beyond the pandemic and ensures that the customers keep going on in whatever they do. So it is important that when you have a situation like this where you need to go through a recovery process or a continuity process, that you have clear communication between yourselves and your customers, because if the customers don't know why you have changed your plans the way they are, then they may not be able to understand why you are making certain steps. But also, as you make those changes, it's also good to consider what are the things that the businesses will need from yourself to be able to carry on. So, for example, for us, we've encouraged our customers to move to digital channels. And in so doing, we've also taken out some of the costs and charges that would go with digital channels. That way, we are directly supporting the business people to be able to continue in this difficult environment. So it is important that every business looks at a detailed plan of how to go through a pandemic. And it may not be the same level of detail for everybody, because organizations have different levels of complexity, and therefore you don't have to invest the same level in terms of continuity as probably a global corporate, if you are an SME that operates in the country. So we need to be able to keep these plans also active. We don't only just create them when the pandemic comes through. It's something that we need to sit through and say, every so often we look at the plans and say, are they workable? Can we make them better? Can we move something different? Can we do something differently, or can we drive a different behavior with our people? Because when you have resilience plans, when you have plans that require that you do things out of the norm, then there's an element of culture change, and that is something that we see very clearly in the organizations when we are doing this. So we also have to prepare our people. So you have to go through all the stages of testing, making sure that this is workable and that is understood and it's well documented, and it actually goes to meet the expectations of the business. Ultimately, the purpose of the resilience plans is to make sure that the organization survives through that particular challenging moment, and that's what every organization, every business should be able to put through. Unfortunately, some businesses get affected more than others in this regard. When you look at things like the airline industry, it's a lot more impacted than some other industries, and they have to look at how do they continue with that business and in the circumstances. And this is where financiers like ourselves would then come in and have a conversation with them and see how we can manage the facilities that they may be having with banks. So it is always good to emphasize the points made earlier by two co-panelists. It's always good to ensure that we have the right level of planning. We understand the risks posed by the challenges properly, and that we are able to drive actions very clearly in each of the scenarios that we have. I think I'll stop there and go on to the next session. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, James. So there we have it. We had insights from Linda, who gave the overview of business continuity planning and specific case studies so that we can apply. We have Wilmot as well that went deeper into scenario analysis and some of the metrics that we can use, and also not forgetting the really important aspect of leadership and how. And then we had James tying it all in, demonstrating what ABSEC has done just to be available. I think all of us, when we say we're going to get money from the bank or we're going to transact, we've been feeling that support. So in terms of those essential services that the banking sector continues to provide, and the supports and the enabling environment with supporting the SMEs to go digital, and what the bank is doing both for its customers but towards society when we look at the broader PP. So this is a time now for us to interact, really to listen to some of the questions that you have. Please feel free to raise your hand, put your question in the question box and the chat so that I can basically read it out for particular experts. So right now, I would Linda, this question is from you. It is from George Aru, and George is saying, to Linda, BCP is like buying an umbrella before the rains come. With the benefit of hindsight, what practical measures would you recommend for SMEs to deal with unprecedented situations like the COVID-19 pandemic? So I love that analogy of buying an umbrella before the rains come. Yeah, Linda, that's to you. And I think this one I will ask to Wilmette so that we have. As an SME, is it the right time to make new investments? And is it the right time to make new investments? And for James, there's a couple of people asking about what support is ABSA providing in financing new ventures during this period. Okay, so I think if you guys can tackle that while more questions come in, please everyone feel free to just put your questions as everybody's answering. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much for that question. So it's like buying an umbrella before the rain comes, but the rain has come. The rain has actually come, unfortunately. So it is actually putting the umbrella in the rain right now. So how would you practically handle the situation? I look at it from three simple areas. So you have one, as a business, you have your revenue pressures. So you have either your sales are declining or your price is increasing and so forth. So you have your revenue pressures, so meaning lower sales. You have your cost pressures, meaning salaries and overheads that you have to pay with limited sales. Then you have your cash flow pressures, which are brought about by all the assets, either the facilities that you have and so forth. So if you look at it practically like that, that's three key areas. In terms of the revenue pressures, how would you deal with it? One, if it's to increase your sales, if you can go online, like James said, go online. If it's to sell the current stock that you have, for some of you who are in retail and had ordered a lot of stocks, if you're going to give bulk discounts and all that to let go of some of your stocks so that you can generate cash, do that. So it's just about how do I increase my sales and either at the same price or at incentivized prices. In cost pressures, how do I maintain how do I restructure my staff, whether it's unpaid leave, I've seen people do that, of course, within the confinements of the law, whether it's rent cost negotiations and so forth, the cost pressures, you have to deal with that, restructure, renegotiate. Cash flow pressures, it's really about, if there are facilities, like James said, I think the banks are really, they're really opening up. If you're a bank customer, renegotiate your facilities and buy some time to really be able to survive. So I think I would answer it like that, wear that three-lens approach. Thank you.
Okay, Wilmette, do you still remember your question? Thank you, Linda.
Yes, I do. Investment.
Okay.
Would I be investing right now?
Yes, and I'd just like you to add, if you're doing that on Julia is also saying that she feels when we discussed risk mitigation, we need to talk about insurance because it's quite important in terms of what insurance can do to support assets, cash flows, and mental health. So you've got investments and insurance.
Right. So investment. Sure. I think you should assess your insurance coverage in general. Right. That should always be, even without COVID, because things go wrong. COVID will only, the impact of COVID largely exacerbates that. And so I think that's where perhaps if you need support in doing that, going out to a professional insurance provider can really be of great assistance. So, but beyond insurance, I think we've touched on a few things. In terms of assessing investment, I think a good rule of thumb is in terms of sales, where are you realizing, in terms of your product line, the greatest amount of profit? So that's a unit economics analysis. And the rule of thumb is you want to continue to invest in products where your revenue is increasing, but your cost base is staying the same or actually declining. So if that's not true, if you have 4 hair care products in the public domain that you're selling, you know, it should be pretty clear how you can decide which one to continue to invest in and which one you might want to discontinue. The other thing I think it was said was technology. Technology in terms of how do you now reach new customers? And along with that, new relationships to reach those customers. In this time of social distancing, that's hard, but when we're at home, if you're not reporting to the office or even at the office, you have time now, I think, to establish new relationships, not only for new clients, but strategic partners, et cetera, et cetera. And a couple of free investments that are no cost to you except for time. This is a great time to become better at your craft. So if you're an accountant, if you're a marketer, there are plenty of online resources that are free. And so learning to build up your management capacity is a worthwhile investment during this time of COVID.
Thank you so much, Wilmette. And James, there was a question really about how ABSA is funding new ventures. And I would just like to add another one from Sammy Fuku, who says, what incentives does ABSA have to cater for small farmers in agricultural counties like Nyandura? Let's just say small farmers as well.
Yeah, thank you. I think in terms of supporting financing of new ventures, I just spoke earlier and said that we are, for example, setting aside funds or set aside funds to support businesses in the space of anything that goes towards manufacturing for PPEs or anything that meets the needs for the COVID-19 pandemic that we have. So clearly those are new business ventures or maybe modifying business ventures because they may not have been the things that the companies were manufacturing before, and we are supporting that. In terms of the other area that I would like to mention on this is our overall sustainability agenda, which we are taking very seriously and building and helping women in business grow, helping people living with disabilities and the youth actually develop themselves in entrepreneurship, and it's part of all the training that we have been doing across the country. You probably have seen the seminars we've held in various parts of the country around this, and that is really important. It underlines our need and our desire to support businesses that are starting up or have just started up and need to be supported to get bigger, and in ensuring that they have the right level, not just of finances, but also knowledge to be able to understand how to run their businesses. So we are doing that, and we're looking to ensuring that we support this sector. We've set again aside a significant funds for that particular purpose to be able to grow that sector in our business. So we are looking at the opportunities that arise even in this particular pandemic session, and we know that because every business is really a solution to a problem, then clearly, if we say that the pandemic has created certain challenges or problems in society, then there must be people working to develop solutions for those problems. And that is what we want to finance and be able to get people to grow with. Obviously, subject to the terms that will make it a viable business, both for the business person and ourselves. So that is what we are doing on that. And I think that covers literally even the second question about what we are doing, because we don't specifically focus on a location, we focus on the opportunity. And the opportunity exists across the country, wherever this need is and wherever this kind of requirement would be, then we would be able to sit, discuss, and work with the various parties and agree on what solutions we can work for them. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you so much, James, for that. I've got a comment really from Samuel, just saying that the session is quite insightful. And he believes, just echoing what Wilmette said, that this is the best time to double down and seek new opportunities in the wake of shifting and emerging opportunities. There is one more question that I think if any of you can answer in a minute. It really is about how often should these plans be reviewed? We've talked about having plans, setting them up. The question is how often, once they're there, how often do they get reviewed?
If I can go first, I think from our perspective, these documents are usually live documents because you have a lot of information that tends to change. For example, your recovery site may change, your contacts, your personnel, all that. So you need to keep the documents and the plans live so that you are able to ensure that they are most current in the event of any eventually anything happening to the business.